Hello there, friends and viewers. This is Leary here, back again, and this time with some hyped up Artanis gameplay. So, let's go over the abilities first. I'm going for Seasoned Marksman here. The other options are pretty interesting, yeah, pretty simple. His Q is a blade dash. He dashes forward, dashes back. On a way backwards, he deals triple damage. It's not that much damage, but it's pretty decent for what a warrior does. His W is on a 4-second cooldown. Makes his next basic attack strike immediately 2 times. And his E is a phase prism, which will shoot up forwards and switch him with someone else. And his trait is a shield overload. This will activate when you take damage when you're below half health. And the cooldown is reduced by 4 seconds every single time you auto attack or you when you auto attack or you use your twin blades, of course. So what basically happens is you keep attacking when you're below 50% health, and your shield keeps triggering over and over and over again. This shield is 20% of your base health, so it kills with levels, and it's actually a pretty decent amount. And the more often you can trigger it, the tankier you're going to be. So when someone manages to stun you, or when you take too much damage in one hit before your shield can trigger, because remember, you have to take damage before your shield triggers. So if you get stunned or you get bursted down too fast, that shield, it's not going to do anything. It's going to make you as tanky as it stitches. Just to put it in perspective. Pre-patch, of course, because after this patch, Stitches is going to be insanely crazy with his health. So you see I switch Sergeant Hammer here with my E. Makes her have to leave like immediately. Remember, I'm playing this game against bots, and I'm actually going to explain you why. So, on the PTR, you can't actually select Artanis yet. So what you need to do is you need to have Legacy of the Fall pre-ordered, which unlocks the warrior of the StarCraft expansion for you, and that warrior, it happens to be Artanis. But you have to have Legacy of the Fall pre-ordered, which most of you won't actually have pre-ordered because it's a lot of money. And if you're not that much into StarCraft, you don't have the pre-ordered. But you have to have that pre-ordered, and you need to select your random hero. And you can do this in any game mode, but I decided to do this in a versus AI because that way I can actually spam the button a lot more and just quit and spam button again. So my chances for getting Artanis would be bigger. So right here I go for the cooldown reduction on my blade dash whenever I'm below half health. You can actually see that cooldown goes down really fast. The reason I go for this cooldown is for my level 7 talent, which will reduce the cooldown of my shield overload when I blade dash into a hero, which is those two talents are going to work really well together because your Q will be on a 2.5 second cooldown, and the more heroes you hit, the faster your shield overload will return to full. And it's going to be incredibly awesome because you're actually going to get sustain out of your Q. Because your W will already reduce the cooldown of your shield overload because of basic attacks, but the rest of your skills really don't. So I'm trying to work towards that sustain, mainly because our healer isn't that great. We have Toronto on the AI team, and the damage I can put out is actually pretty reasonable on a single target, but it's not that great for AoE. Like, you're really going to be the warrior who picks off a target, Artanis really has a skill set that allows him to, because his Q is really his only AoE. His W is single target. It's extremely good damage against single target, extremely bursty too. So you can pick off a target like really fast. and especially since I went for Seasoned Marksman, which really synergizes well with those twin blades. Your base attack speed isn't that high, it's I believe 1 per second, but with your twin blades, which is in a 4-second cooldown, you can get off 6 attacks every 4 seconds. This is higher than most melee heroes actually, so you know, his attack speed is actually pretty decent when you consider in the twin blades. Costs mana, of course, but it's not that bad. And then again, his E is also single target, and the problem with his E is that it's his only cool or CC, and it's not that incredible. It's really good for picking off a single target, but you need to have your team to follow up on that, because it won't keep them from doing anything to your team. So it's you know, it's really pure displacement, which is actually really interesting, because you know it will matter a lot if you hit it, when you hit it, where you hit it, on who you hit it. Because if you hit this, for example, on a squishy Calphas, who's basically going to be in backline, you know, you're going to swap his plays with your plays, and since you're the tank, he's going to be in between you and your damage dealers, meaning he's going to die most likely. But you know, you have to make sure that you use it at the time that your team can follow up on it. So his E you need to use it sparingly. It has pretty high mana cost too, so I wouldn't recommend spamming all of his abilities except for his W. But something I really want to point out is that this is the first warrior that's getting Seasoned Marksman in level 1, and because most of his level 1 talents aren't really that great to be tanky, except for the twin blades giving block charges. You know, Seasoned Marksman is going to be a pretty regular pick on Artanis. The other option is his twin blades that gave 100% damage against non-heroic targets, which will be useful for boss farming, which will be most likely a thing that Artanis can do. So Seasoned Marksman is going to be a pretty awesome choice. Here I go for the Pure Fire Beam, mostly because I want to see how useful it actually is. Both of his ults have a global cost range, which is awesome. You know, I use it on Hammer here, and you can immediately see if the target is running away, it's not going to do anything. So what I recommend for it is use it in team fights. Use it when you have vision of someone and he's taking a mercenary camp or a boss, or really anything that you want to disrupt. It's not going to get its full damage off, even though if the full 8 seconds of damage is going off, it's going to be crazy good, because damage on it is pretty insane, to be honest. But you know, it's not that fast. So what basically is going to happen is the target is going to run away, meaning that if it was doing something, it's going to disrupt it. So for example, think about a front line that is harassing your team. You put beam on them, and they need to get off of your squishies, because if they don't, they're gonna die really quickly, because it does a lot of damage. His other ult is this AoE blind, and it's actually pretty big AoE blind. It doesn't do much damage, but I think that's going to be the more often picked up, mostly because a 4-second blind on a team fight. People often underestimate how much damage basic attacks often do in team fights, and if every single hero on their team is auto-attacking while spamming your abilities, that's going to be a lot of damage. It's gonna give a lot of value if you hit it properly, and again, global. So you're gonna get a lot of utility out of that. Artanis is gonna be really good in the sense of presence. I mean, he doesn't really have any dashes or movement abilities apart from his blade dash, which really isn't a movement ability; it's pure damage. So right here, I go for the ability damage reduction on my blade or on my shield overload. Mostly because I think this is gonna be the talent to go to for Artanis. As long as he has a good team to work around him, he can take a lot of damage and he can harass the backline a lot. And as long as he keeps getting healed, his shield overload will be triggering a lot more, because the more you keep him alive, the more his shield overload gets the chance to trigger, and the more he's going to keep himself alive. So getting that ability damage reduction on your shield overload is gonna be really useful, especially because most abilities are built around bursting. So they'll try to burst you, and as soon as they try to burst you, your shield overload is going to trigger, and at 20% of your shield overload, it's going to count for 40% of your health instead versus abilities, which, in my opinion, is insane. And especially if you get to trigger it twice or thrice or just an infinite amount of times, it's gonna be really useful. He is really good at taking more camps. I mean, especially against the shaman camps. I mean, he can take them down pretty decently for what a normal warrior does. It's not a Rexar, it's not a Sonya, but he does it pretty decently, and especially once he gets below 50% health, he won't really die, because against mercenary camps who don't really have crowd control, you'll be able to just keep triggering your shield overload. So what I also think is that he's going to be an amazing boss taker. From like level 4 onwards or something like that, because of his shield overload basically, and as long as you manage to keep triggering that, the boss is not going to kill you, because your shield overload, if you don't get stunned, should be able to trigger every 4 seconds, because you get 4 art attacks out in 4 seconds. Which basically means cooldown reduction of 16 seconds on your shield overload, and 16 seconds plus 4 seconds is 20 seconds, which happens to be the cooldown of the shield overload. So as you can see in this gameplay, I'm actually pretty squishy. As soon as I get, of course I played recklessly. I just want to point it out because it is an AI game, but I played pretty recklessly. But you're still pretty squishy if you don't get your shield overloads off. You don't have any crowd control. Apart from your E, and this is something that people really underestimate on warriors, is they need to have either insane amounts of sustain or a really good amount of crowd control, because you are a front line. People are not going to be peeling for you because you are the front line. You're the one that's supposed to be peeling, right? So this is one of the main reasons why Sonya is not a main tank, why Stitches is not just a main tank. He will become extremely good. It's the reason Diablo isn't really amazing, because it's Diablo, even with the buffs, he's not squish, but he doesn't have any escapes, he doesn't have any damage mitigation. Once your health drops, you're dead. That's basically how it works. And for Artanis, the problem is that his shield overload will only trigger when you take damage. So you can't chain them together infinitely. And this is something that's really important. And this is something why people think currently that Artanis is overpowered. But yeah, he really isn't overpowered. He's gonna be Sonya 2.0 with a slightly different toolkit. Like, he will get more sustain, but he will also have less damage, less chase potential. He'll just keep diving, basically. And I'm interested to see how he plays out, basically. So, for those who kept watching, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. And maybe I'll upload another video of him tomorrow. If you have any build suggestions, leave it down in the comments below, and I will also link you there to a spoiler video of his abilities or talents.